Previously on Chaos Head Noah.
そういえば、ついさっき美奈子から言われたんだけどよ。
美奈子。
ああ、俺の女。で、美奈子が言うんだよ。ここ1ヶ月ぐらい、日常と急に仲良くなったけど、なんでって。こいつ何言ってんだって最初は思ったんだけど、そもそも俺、普通だったらお前みたいなやつとは絶対関わろうとしねえんだよな。
Yeah, I can believe it.
リミを通して知り合ったってのは、なんとなく記憶にあるんだけどよ。細かいことはなぜか思い出せねえんだよな。
You're not really helping, you're not really helping assuage Takumi's fears that he's a delusional person, Misumi. Just saying. What you're saying is not helping anything on that front at all. It was the same. It was the same situation I'd experienced earlier. Stop it. I don't want this. Don't say anything else, please. You could have just talked about girls like you always do. So why, today of all days, did you have to?
お前さ、いつ俺とダチになったんだっけ？
ねえ、ちょっとだけ語っちゃっていいかな。タクにね、いろいろひどいこと言っちゃったんだ。しかもそんなことしておいてすごく自分勝手なんだけど、私彼と一緒に過ごした時間はとっても楽しかったって思っちゃってるんだ。何もかもが妄想でまみれたまやかしでしかなかったのに、学生生活もあの学校に私やタクが通ってることも、大ちんと友達だっていうことも、私がタクと一緒にいようとしたことも、タクの存在そのものも。
ああ。
A voice came.
手を引けって言ったのに。
A voice he recognized.
残念っすよ、先輩。
Bon, collapsed in a heap, was met with the ridicule of one man. Sua Mamoru.
スワがお前が俺を。
そうっす。いやー、祝初発砲ってところっすか？
As he laughed into the night, Sua casually picked up the object from the bench.
ちなみに先輩、やけにこれに注目してたっすけど、そんなに珍しかったんすか？ダーススパイダーのヘルメット。
Bond's breathing grew increasingly shallow. Only a faint wheezing sound could be heard leaking from his throat. Before long, he would be unable to perceive anything anymore.
何者なんだお前。
With his consciousness fading in and out, Bond spoke one final question. In response, Sua pointed the muzzle at Bond and gave his reply.
魔法使いっす。
バカが。
Before either of them could realize it, the wind had stopped blowing. The darkness had quickly turned to a place of serenity, and within it, two figures remained frozen still. But that, too, remained only for an ephemeral moment. Sua's finger, now curled around the trigger, slowly moved inward.
先輩に信仰の救いあれ。
みやちゃんなの？どう思う？
A voice so clear, it could never be an illusion. An intrepid smile on her face. That laughter in the air. It was exactly the same as Yua remembered from her sister. Mia had always acted this very same way. In order for her to be the wrongdoer in the eyes of others, she had laughed like that all the time.
みやちゃん、本当に私がミヤであなたがユアだと思う？どういうこと？もし逆だったら、あなたはミヤ、死んだのはユア、殺したのはあなた。
What?
何を言っているの？あなたは親に愛される姉が疎ましくてネットで殺人を依頼したのよ。しかも自殺に見せかけるように見ず知らずの4人も一緒に飛び降りさせた。あなたは姉になりすまして妹の死を悲しみ、涙を流しているふりをしながら、これまで姉が独占していた親の愛を手に入れて心の中ではほくそ笑んでいる。違うわ。私たちはもともと一つだったんだから。また戻るだけ。一歩を踏み出せばあなたは私になる。
Yua, her eyes vacant of all light, mechanically whispered those emotionless words. Spreading her arms to maintain her balance, she endured the upward rising wind. Beside her, Mia, arms spread just as Yua's were, looked at her sister and smiled.
耐える必要なんてないよ。あなたは私の痛みを知らなくちゃならない。さあ、飛んで。そうすれば、私もあなたも同じ痛みを共有するわ。私はどっちなの？私？あなた？それを聞いても意味はないわ。どっちにしたってあなたは飛ぶ。
It was a sword, all too sharp like the wit shown by the other, all too elegant like the glasses worn by one, all too vigorous, all too immaculate, all too profound, its nature veiled, all too delicate, its frame easy to fracture. And so beautiful, it beckoned tears from all who laid eyes upon it. And so beautiful, it beckoned tears from all who laid eyes upon it. The object, now in her hands. It reminded you of Iyase's sword that she had seen at the overpass, and of the sword that Bon had spoken of, Seina's.
今のは何？誰？あなた誰？どうしてミヤちゃんの姿に？どうやって？
Yua backed away in confusion, still holding her D-sword. The man was similarly bewildered. He had likely not predicted that he would have been uncovered, leaving him to act in a very clearly frantic manner.
お前こそなんで？まさかこのガキギガロマニアックスか？聞いてないぞ！くそ、どうしたら？
And then, ignoring gravity itself, It came flying in, its path almost horizontal. By the time the man looked behind him, it had already perforated the rucksack on his back. And from that same rucksack, a pale flash of light surged.
これ
Yua remembered the sword. She had seen it once before. A single presence approached her. Yua raised her head. Someone then emerged from the darkness.
何事かと思ったらこんな騒ぎになっていたの。岸本さん。
Without a change in her expression, Ayase glanced at the sword Yua held in her hands.
感じる大いなる意志を。私がこの病院に居続けた意味はこういうことだったんだ。
Yua had sunk into the ground, dumbfounded. Ayase picked up the glasses that had fallen near her, crouched down in front of Yua, and peered at the girl's face. Then, with her slender fingers, she brushed Yua's hair aside and gently put her glasses back in place.
君もグラジオールの黒騎士だったのね。
And with that, Ayase gave a faint, transient smile. And so it continues. Greetings, my name is Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Chaos Head Noah. So, we're in a very dark and spooky looking lobby, and we got Rimi here with her D-sword at the ready, looking tense. So, I'm going to run to the assumption that we're about to confront Nanami's kidnapper. Now, what I'm curious to know is whether or not Suwa and Nanami's kidnapper are indeed the same person. And the reason I say that is because Bond did speculate that there was likely more than one new gen culprit. And if Suwa is, and if that's indeed the case, and if Suwa is one of them, then that just raises the obvious question: who's the other? Again, this is assuming that Bond's theory is right on the money. I guess we'll find out soon enough, won't we? Upon opening a glass door, the very moment Rimi entered what appeared to be a lobby, a twitch of fear ran through her. A chill breeze, cold enough to freeze her, crept up her legs. There was no sign of anyone. A fact that was obvious for this place, and this place alone. And yet, when Rimi thought about what awaited her ahead, she could not help but wish that someone could have been there with her. Before her was a soundproof door, a door akin to those of a movie theater. From a small crack within that gateway, the chilled breeze came wafting through. The breeze was accompanied by a white haze, a haze akin to the smoke that rose from dry ice. Rimi fiercely bit down on her lip. In her hands was her D-sword, already real-booted.
だから大丈夫。だから怖がっちゃダメだ。
Well, whoever they are, she's clearly scared of them. Probably no joke. Desperately telling herself that, she gulped a single time before proceeding to burst open the soundproof door of her shoulder. What is that? Rimi's eyes went wide at the scene she saw before her. There stood a device that was beyond enormous. Enshrined in the center of the dome-shaped room, it could only be described as a monster. An ominous sound rang faintly throughout the spacious room. It was a low-pitched noise, akin to the deep growl of a beast. A sound that signified the device's operation. Is this connected to Noah 2 by any chance?
の圧
Wow. Guessed right.
もう動いてるんだ。
君のおかげですよ。
A voice replied to Rimi's vexed murmurs. Well, I think I recognize that voice. The moment she heard that voice, Rimi felt her very soul tremble.
咲畑リミ。1年半ぶりですね。
Norose, right? Rimi's instinct was to be engulfed in fear. Shivers rose from the depths of her heart. Abominable memories attacked her consciousness. Her grim past was on the brink of being resurrected. To endure such a threat, Rimi strengthened the grasp on her D-sword and lightly shook her head. Once she regained her hold, she shifted her gaze toward the voice. Right beside the enormous device, Noah too, was him. The figure of a man donned in a suit. And by his side...
ナナちゃん
That's Nanami? Was Nishijo Nanami, held captive. Her uniform was torn, and a bandage soaked with blood was wrapped around her right wrist. Her head hung toward the floor, and she looked terribly, terribly pale. Faced with such a pitiable sight, Rimi was at a loss for words. So if this is the actual Nanami, then number one, who's the Nanami that's currently visiting Takumi right this minute? Maybe another delusion, maybe a delusional human, maybe a delusion-shaped human, much like Takumi himself is. And well, shit. I guess that also means that the hand that we got from Suwa was actually the real deal. Along with that phone call too, probably. Crucified in Jesus of Nazareth's likeness. No. What held her now could not be called a cross. It was something far different. It took the shape of pure, unadulterated malice. The entirety of this world's evil. The entirety of this world's disorder. The entirety of this world's immorality. It would be no exaggeration to refer to it as a symbol, sculpted to those very attributes.
君がこの1年半どこで何をしていたかについて興味はありませんが、困りますね。あまりうろちょろされると。
The man, Norose Genichi, spoke in a peaceful tone, but his voice was embedded with the sharpness of a blade. Doing everything in her power not to sink to her knees, Rimi glared back at Norose.
ナナちゃんを離して。
ほう。まさかここに来たのはお友達を助けに来たという理由ですか？
ナナちゃんを離して。その子は何も関係ないでしょ。
では直接話してみてはどうですか？
Norose's offer left Rimi confused. She was acting brave, but in truth, the moment she had seen Norose's face, her heart had been seized by fear, and her legs had begun to tremble. Unable to move an inch from where she stood, she called out to the crucified Nanami.
ナナちゃん。
Nanami's head ever so slightly stirred. Her eyes, which had been closed until that very moment, opened faintly. She raised her head, and her hollow eyes fell upon Rimi.
リミさん。 大丈夫。今助けてあげるから。
In the middle of Rimi's sentence, Nanami's face twisted in pain. Her face was pale, and her breathing labored. You know, I gotta ask here. If that thing that she's in is a D sword, does it belong to you, Norose? Or is there someone else in this room I should be worried about?
右手が痛いの。
Then, with very little resistance, Nanami's body slid off the cross.
ナナちゃん。ねえ、リミさん。
Without getting up from the floor, Nanami lifted her head and let her gaze roam about the room. It was as if she was searching for something.
ナナのバングル知らないかな。見つからなくて。ナナのバングルどこにもなくて。
She staggered to her feet, and this time, she searched her surroundings with her left hand.
バングルだね。分かった。私知ってるから。だから私と一緒にここを出よう。病院に行こう。ね。手が痛いよ。ナナはなんでリミさんのことを知ってるんだっけ。前にどこで会ったんだっけ。
Now there's an interesting detail. Apparently, her memories of you are a little bit suspect too, huh?
リミさんなの。リミさんがナナのバングル。嘘。どうして。ひどいよ。
Rimi, who realized that something was wrong with Nanami, instantly looked to Norose. With a scornful grin painted on his face, he simply observed Rimi and Nanami's exchange.
ナナちゃんに何を見せてるの。
Oh. Nanami's gaze was fixed on Rimi. Trembling like a newborn fawn, she slowly stood up. And then, she held out her right wrist, as if offering Rimi her palm. A bandage drenched in blood. It almost appeared as if her hand were still connected. And yet, one after the other, vibrant, scarlet drops fell from the bandage without reprieve. By her feet, a pool of blood grew larger and larger with each passing second. She needs medical attention. Fast! But despite how frantic she was, Rimi was unable to get any closer. For getting closer to Nanami would mean getting closer to that man. It frustrated her greatly, leaving her on the verge of tears.
リミさんが持ってたの。ナナちゃん、帰ろう。こっちに来て。どうして持ってくの。返して。ナナのバングル返して。落ち着いて、ナナちゃん。お兄からもらったナナの大切なあれは誰にも渡したくないの。返して返してよ、ナナちゃん。返して。
Together with her pained scream. Oh! A single drop of blood fell from her right wrist. Before it had the opportunity to hit the ground, the drop crystallized at high speed. Originating from nothing, with the drop at its center, a mineral-esque object burst into view. It was as if a carapace formed from minerals had ripped through a rift in space. In the blink of an eye, it took shape. It resembled a cross far more than an object, than the object that had previously held Nanami. Or perhaps it was a sword which pierced itself perpendicularly, as if rejecting all.
これはディソード。
So you have a D sword too.
返してよ。お願い。
And Nanami, as if embracing it, held it close to her chest. Tears, born from all the sadness within her, fell upon it. Her D-sword flickered scarlet, as if one with her pulse.
でないとリミさんのこと許さない。そんなナナちゃんもキガロマニアックスだったの。
So it would seem.
今日だけはナナのわがまま受け止めてよ。
What are okay? So again, what are you? Are you basically what I saw? What something similar to what I saw with Mia in the last episode? Are you another pod person that's here to try to screw with me or something? I saw Nanami crying. She was hanging her head low, and while she was trying her best to hold them in, tears ran down her pained face all the same. I took one look at her, and then I returned my gaze to the ceiling, resuming my mission of counting the rusted spots.
抜かれたって僕には何もできないよ。僕は妄想の存在なんだから。妄想の。
そんなこと言わないでよ。お兄が妄想のはずないじゃん。だってナナは小さい頃のお兄のこと知ってるもん。いつもナナに世話かけさせてちっとも頼りにならないけど。
But are those memories you have even real?
でもお兄は昔からずっとナナと一緒だったよ。
Wait. She was right. It was just as she'd said. I had memories from when I was little. When Nanami was little, excuse me. I had memories from my childhood. I had memories of watching the news reporting on the bus accident my classmates had been in. The one that happened on the field trip I hadn't been able to go to. I even remembered my teacher, Mr. Saito, who had passed away in the accident. The words of Rimi, a tall stranger, or the words of Nanami, who I'd grown up with. It went without saying which to believe. The right person to believe wasn't Rimi. The right person to believe was Nanami. If Nanami was real, that meant that I too was real.
Nanami.
I extended my hand toward her. Nanami's existence was my one and only hope. The sole existence that would save me.
助けて。Nanami. 助けて。
If Nanami's warmth was real, then I could prove that I was real too. Nanami, who had been crying from loneliness, wiped away her tears, looked at me with her reddened eyes, smiled at me with her tearful smile, and then stabbed me with a knife.
抱きしめてくれる？
I nodded. Then again. Then again. Then once more. By doing so, if I could save Nanami, by doing so, I could save myself. I would gladly hug this bratty little sister of mine, no matter the time or place. I would hug my one and only sister in this world, the one that shared my blood.
Nanami, 助けて。
I wanted to feel her warmth as soon as I could. And so, opening my arms to welcome her into my chest, I prepared to hug her. Tightly. Ever so tightly.
Honey.
But right at that very moment, well, at least she wasn't a hostile entity, so I guess that's one positive of this whole thing. But what absolutely rotten timing, because now he's gonna look at this and think, oh shit, if even Nanami isn't real, then, oh god, he's gonna fucking lose it even more than he already has. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Nanami's body was enveloped in a faint light, and she burst into countless blue particles. One after another, the particles burst like bubbles in the air. The air in which my arms remained extended, never receiving the hug I so desired. My chest never feeling the warmth I so desired. Right before my very eyes, Nanami had vanished. With only her left hand, Nishijo Nanami tightly embraced the D-sword that had been born of her own blood. Her right arm, meanwhile, only lay upon it. Her blood, seeping from the bandage on her right wrist, slowly ran down the sword's fuller.
痛い。知ってたの？ナナちゃんがギガロマニアックスだって。
Rimi's question was directed at Norose, who had evidently chosen to remain a spectator. No matter how much Rimi glared his way, he always retained the same composed look on his face.
偶然の産物というものですよ。
Wait a minute. So that person that he was speaking to in his office some time ago, was that Nanami? Then the Jero Froggy I saw in the cup was her, and that cup was also hers? What the hell was she doing? What the hell was she doing at his office? And she's cooperating with him? What?
ナナちゃんにひどいことしたくせに何が偶然なの？
君の時のような苦労はしませんでした。我が社にはすでに覚醒させるためのマニュアルが確立していますから。もっとも西条匠にだけはそのマニュアルも通用しませんが、イレギュラーな化け物は扱いづらいことこの上ない。
化け物だなんて言わないで。
君も化け物だからですか？
Oh? Rimi? Are you and Takumi actually two birds of a feather, so to speak? Are you yourself also a delusionary existence?
そういう話はしてない。
虚無から生まれたものだからと言い換えた方が良かったですね。
Wow. This is definitely a very interesting revelation, to say the least. But that begs the question: if Takumi was a delusionary person born from Shogun's delusions, then who created Rimi? Averting her gaze, Rimi bit her lip in frustration. Her trembling had yet to cease. In direct opposition to her wish to save Nanami, her legs refused to move. It was as if they had taken root inside the floor. Norose, meanwhile, caressed Nanami's head almost lovingly, acting as if he was under no threat whatsoever. Nanami had no reaction to this. She simply hung her head low as she repeatedly drew shallow breaths.
闇のある一点だけを灯しているスポットライト。その周囲には無数の死体が転がっているのでしょうが、誰にも見えない。君自身にもです。
そんな話やめて。
例えば君が自殺をしたら、スポットライトは数十センチ横にずれて君を闇で覆ってくれるでしょう。そして何も知らない別の誰かが代わりにスポットライトを浴びる。
I'm trying to make sense of what he's saying. And if I just take what he's saying at face value, then well, I guess there's no way for me to take this at face value. Spotlight illuminating a single spot amid the endless dark. Around it, countless corpses lying on the floor, with none being able to see them. Not even you yourself. The spotlight. I'm not sure if I can make sense of this with what little I know, so I'm just going to continue. Prompted by Rimi's sharp tone, Norose shrugged his shoulders, then returned to silence.
痛い。ナナちゃんを解放してほしいんだけど。
拘束は解きましたが。
連れて帰る。
構いませんよ。もう用済みです。
ナナちゃん、入ろう。その件は消して。だったらバングル返して。返すから。
Rimi knew where Nana's hand was being kept. On that day. On the night Nanami's hand had been delivered to Takumi's room. After Takumi had collapsed from sheer humiliation on the roof of O-Front. Rimi had retrieved the hand from within the refrigerator. So that was you who took it! Shogun was the one who had it now. It was in cold storage to keep it from decomposing. The bangle, too, was.
お兄からもらったの。ナナのだよ。バングル。勝手に持って行って。ひどいよ。
Nanami's voice, which had only been speaking in incoherent mumbles, was gradually growing more and more intense.
落ち着いて深呼吸して。 自分をしっかり持って。
一つ聞きますが、
Norose's sudden interruption elicited a click of Rimi's tongue, though only in her mind.
西条匠にとっては君たち二人のうちどちらがより重要度が高い存在ですか？
Rimi cast her eyes downward.
リミさんなんか。
While Nanami instead raised her head. A sparkle returned to her once empty eyes. A glaring, brilliant shine. One that warranted only a single descriptor. Abnormal. In a panic, Rimi frantically attempted to brace herself, only to be frozen in place by the sudden darkness. It was as if all the lights had been turned off. Rimi had no way of knowing whether it had been intentional or accidental.
負けちゃダメ。
Rimi whispered so, in an attempt to encourage herself. Her voice made the air undulate, but it melded itself into the dark before long. She then noticed that she could no longer hear Noa2's growling rumblings. I hate the dark. It always reminds me of back then. Rimi tried looking around, but all she could see was darkness spread through every corner. No speck of the concept known as light existed. Could she not see because it was dark? Or could it perhaps be because her sight was not working properly? She had even lost the ability to tell up from down. She could not tell where she was anymore. Her five senses had been eroded by darkness, and now her body was unable to recognize anything. Sensory deprivation? As if her body had been turned into a gas. As if her consciousness had slipped away from its vessel. Past and present fused as one, and Rimi's memories began to intermix. When was now? When was the past? Then, in the world ruled only by sheer darkness, a single ray of light shone down. And there, within that circular spotlight, was Rimi, cradling her knees close to her chest. Rimi was seeing this very scene from within the darkness. It's the same as back then. Back then, Rimi had nothing. Before she knew it, she had been confined and tortured. But rather than anything physical, the psychological pain she suffered had been far greater. A daily life born from the depths of hell. A daily life consisting solely of enduring. How she had been before that, Rimi did not know. When and how had she been confined? For how long had she been tortured? That Rimi did not know. But something told her this was not due to memory loss. The moment she suddenly opened her eyes, a consciousness known as herself had been born. Or so she felt. Perhaps the one inhabiting this body before her, unable to escape from all the pain, had ended her own life within her delusions. And then perhaps, as a new her, a new personality, the current Rimi had been born. Perhaps there had been countless other hers before her. Even the name Sakihara Rimi may have been different each time. To myself, I don't exist. Something moved amid the darkness. Rimi stood up and slowly began to move toward it. And as she moved, so did the spotlight. And what she found was a dead Rimi lying on the ground. Without ever looking at Rimi, a whisper flowed from Rimi's mouth.
あなたは 何番目？
Clones? So that's what he means. So this is what he means. What he meant earlier. Didn't he? Spotlight illuminating a single spot amid the endless dark. Around it, countless corpses lying on the floor, with none being able to see them. Not even you yourself. In reference to other Rimis. And if you committed suicide, the spotlight would move a few dozen centimeters, and you would be swallowed by the dark. Probably what these other Rimis are, that are just lying on the floor in the dark. Then another someone, unaware of everything, privy to nothing, would in turn be bathed in the spotlight. Which would mean in reference to how Rimi feels she came to be. She didn't know any other existence prior to the torturous one that she had in the dark all by herself before being bathed in the spotlight. And this Rimi asks, which number are you? So I think maybe clones?
私は
Rimi's eyeballs twitched incessantly. An endless amount of tears ran down from the corners of her eyes. Her D-sword then slipped from her hands, and Rimi sank to the floor. Much like a child would, she covered her face with her hands and weakly shook her head. I'm sorry. I couldn't do it. Nanami stared at her with a vacant look on her face, while Norose let out a short, disinterested snort. Nanami had vanished without a trace. She had turned into bubbles before my very eyes. Her substance had simply ceased to exist.
どこだよ。出てきてよ。いるんだろ。また、いたずらか。隠れてるんだ。やめろよ。
My vision grew blurry from my tears. No matter how many times I wiped them away, the lukewarm droplets kept pouring out. But both this warmth and the feelings making me shed these tears were delusions. I myself was one, after all. Nanami had been a delusion. I've been stupid to believe it would all be okay. My hopes have been crushed just like that.
で、いつ、この妄想って冷めるの？早く冷めてよ。
Not even I knew who I was talking to. But right now, I was fine with anyone. I just wanted to be heard.
この妄想が覚めたら、僕は本当はイケメンなんだ。そうに決まってる。物分かりのいい妹と優しい姉がいるんだ。かわいい 彼女と付き合ってて、その子がリミとかセナみたいな電波女じゃなくて、セーラさんみたいないい子なんだ。
I hate to break it to you, Takumi, but Seira-tan's not a good girl. Just saying.
あなたは妄想の存在なんだよ。
Groveling on the floor, I buried my head in the mountain of trash and tightly gripped Seira-tan. I tried my best to avert my eyes from reality as I pounded the floor with my fists. But I couldn't. Rimi's words pummeled my mind relentlessly.
死にたい。死にたいよ。どうして誰も僕を殺してくれないんだ。ねえ、セーラタン殺して、僕を殺して。
そんなに死にたいの？
死にたい。こんなのもう嫌だ。自分の存在が嫌だ。何も考えたくない。生きていたくない。
かわいそうなタッキー。だったらすぐに殺される方法を教えてあげる。
How generous of you. This is why you're my waifu. Seira-tan always devoted herself to me. Commendably so.
とりあえず外に出るんさ。
外に？
Do I really want to go out there? I have a feeling I'm gonna see something I will really not like seeing if I do. Doing as I was told, I stood up and headed for the door. And then, after nearly tripping and falling over trash countless times, I exited my base. I had no need to question her. Seira-tan would never betray me. She was my waifu after all. And she wasn't 3D. Once I was outside, a strange sound hit my ears. The sound. Hadn't I heard it somewhere before? Noah too, yeah? And now that I think about it, didn't I hear this sound a couple times throughout this whole story so far? I think that there was that one time where there was that big gathering that happened in the park with that porter, excuse me. I don't know why I keep calling them pod people. This is an invasion of the body snatchers, last I checked. Oh wait, I wonder. Grimm mentioned a public gathering that was set to occur, didn't he? Put two and two together, I'm going to assume that the porters must be at work right now. Likely in preparation for the third melt that Norose alluded to.
追いかけたら殺してもらえるの？
そういうこと。
優しく殺してもらえるかな？
私が保証するよ。
Well, there's a betrayal waiting to happen right there. I'm willing to bet you my life savings that they won't be gentle at all.
よかった。やっと死ねる。
This sound was my Messiah, the bell of salvation that would grant me passage to the promised land. With Seira-tan in hand, I set off toward the sound. Whenever I got close to the sound, it would move farther away, almost like it was guiding me somewhere. Every time I seemed to be onto it, it would quickly become distant. Every time I seemed to lose track of it, it would come close and wait for me, as though it had a will of its own, a sound of a will of its own. It reminded me of Shogun's existence. His face flashed through at my mind, but I quickly grew indifferent to it. Whether it was him or someone else, as long as someone killed me, I didn't mind. I even stopped wondering about the nature of the sound. I was a delusionary existence, and I was going to die pretty soon, so there was no point in caring. With my head completely empty of all thoughts, like a moth to flame, I staggered after the sound. A barrage of noise now surrounded me. I was unable to differentiate any of them. With a click of my tongue, I tried to find the origin of the clamor, only to gulp instead. Suddenly, without me having realized it, I was standing in Scramble Crossing. It was then that I realized that the clamor was coming from the sheer number of people crammed into the crossing. It was almost jam-packed. Everyone was pushing right up against each other, like a morning train ride during rush hour. Compared to when I'd been broadcasted from the top of O-Front, there was an even bigger number of people here. Now that I thought about it, Grim had mentioned something about this. Something about there being a festival at Scramble Crossing tonight. What the hell is this, Seira? I have nothing but horrible memories of this place. Why did you bring me here? Revenge? Where's the person who's gonna kill me, Seira?
目の前
This tremendous crowd on this cold autumn night. Just what kind of festival could make so many people gather here, to the point of there being no room to breathe? Suddenly, the wall of people opened up before me, like I was Moses from the Bible. A single path invited me in. They were all waiting for one person. Me. It's the reality TV show that's sweeping the nation. Today's episode, the world's most terrifying offline meet. People from all over the net have come to lynch the biggest embarrassment in all of Japan, Nishijo Takumi, right in the middle of Shibuya. Their catchphrase? Whose eyes are those eyes? Offline meet. When members of an internet community meet in real life. Yeah, I guess the name's pretty self-explanatory on that front, isn't it? When that long scenario played out in my mind, I laughed. As much as I hated pain, as long as I would die, I'd be more than willing to deal with that much.
僕が死ぬにはぴったりの祭りじゃないか。
I'd finally grasped what Seira-tan meant by revenge. I hadn't died the last time I was here, so they had prepared this stage just for me. Forming a lazy smile stemming from the corner of my mouth, I started making my way through the path between the people. At the end of it, I could see various members of the mass media standing next to each other like idiots, cameras and microphones in hand. Both the onlookers and the mass media were incredibly tense. There was a tiny bit of commotion, but nowhere near the amount you'd normally hear at a festival. All the energy they had back when I humiliated myself atop O Front was gone. Everyone looked at me. Their eyes were cold and sharp, staring daggers at me with what felt close to murderous intent. Whether I liked it or not, my expectations were swelling higher and higher. Kill me. Kill me. Kill me. When I looked up, I realized that all 4 of the enormous jumbotrons were showing footage of me walking through the crowd. I was sure that, just like last time, this was a national broadcast too. If the viewer rate was even 40%, I would die while being watched by approximately 48 million people. The death of me, who is no more than a delusionary existence. The death of me, who had no value whatsoever. The death of me, who was wholly and entirely worthless. Is that what you all want to see? Well then, congratulations. Here you go. It doesn't matter either way to me. As long as I die, I don't care how many people see it. And so, I stood before the battery of cameras and microphones. A swarm of flashes burst in unison. Blinding lights flashed intermittently. Straining my eyes, I fought to endure them. Then, a reporter that was probably in his 40s spoke up. I had seen him on a number of talk shows before.
西尾君、今回はどんなパフォーマンスを見せてくれるんだい？ところで、実は今日の昼に逮捕された貼り付け事件の容疑者は実行犯に過ぎなくて黒幕がいるっていう話があるんだけど、どう思うかな？
Well, whoever said that, they're not wrong. Why was this random guy acting all buddy-buddy with me? And what was that last part supposed to mean? Was he asking for my opinion? Huh. I guess when the media called up the criminal psychology professors every time, and they always said the same standard, uninteresting bullshit, even an amateur like me could serve as a replacement. Now that's a damning indictment. Regardless, I couldn't have any less of an opinion on what the guy was asking about. I had lost all interest in New Gen. I'd come here to be killed, not to answer questions. I had no energy for it.
それでね、西尾君、ズバリ聞くけど、真犯人と目される人物は通称その目誰の目と言われていて、それは君なんじゃないかっていう噂があるんだよね。
そうかもね。
My whispers were broadcast all throughout Shibuya via the Jumbotron speakers. Commotion ensued. The bloodthirsty atmosphere got even stronger among the people gathered here. Just kill me already. Set me free. Stop asking me for things. And yet, despite my wishes, the microphones came even closer. They were pushed so violently toward me, the next step would be shoving one straight in my mouth. The other reporters, too, were raining questions down on me incessantly.
それは事件への関与を認める発言と考えていいんですか？
現実とゲームとの区別ができなくなるような経験はありますか？
逮捕された小前田容疑者との関係について聞かせてください。
人を殺したのはやはりゲーム感覚だったりします？
Someone's really trying to go for the video games causes violence agenda, aren't they? In a sense, I was like a video game character. Someone. Please reset me. Just get me the game over once and for all. As soon as those words left my mouth, the crowd, at the peak of its tension, exploded.
死ね！人でなし鬼畜！
殺してやるよ！
地獄に落ちろ！
死刑にしろ！ぶち殺せ！殺人鬼！
I was overwhelmed by the waves of people. And as the screams and shouts swarmed, I was swallowed up by the undulating masses. I was tossed around and jostled, crushed to nothing, and pulverized. Being shoved by people in all directions, my body started floating. My soles left the ground. No matter how much I struggled, I couldn't do anything. I was struck on the head, punched in the arms. But none of it was painful enough to kill me. Hey Seira-tan, you said that they'd be gentle! What about this seems gentle to you? And with no room to breathe, I started to suffocate. But I didn't resist. I entrusted my body to the chaos. And in doing so, the pressure suddenly disappeared, and my body fell to the floor. Seira-tan fell from my hand and toppled onto the asphalt. Countless feet lined up like trees in a forest, and as they writhed about, my waifu rolled through the gaps between them. Despite extending my hand, I couldn't reach her. Crush her! Her face, complete with that endlessly radiant smile of hers, the smile that soothed my soul, was stepped on by someone's shoe. Fuck yeah! Hell yeah! She's dead! She's dead and I no longer have to deal with her! How about you go fuck yourself and rot in the deepest circle of hell, you traitorous little bitch. You're like that bad itch that is finally being scratched, and I couldn't be happier. Her small body was kicked farther away, and some lady in red high heels ended up crushing her torso.
Seira.
No matter how much I called out to her, no answer came. My one and only ally was gone. It felt like my chest was being crushed by sorrow. I had lost all reason to stay in this world, to live. And when I looked up, surrounded by people as I was, even the night sky was hidden away from me. No one noticed I was there, slumped down on the ground. Even though I was right there. Even though I was asking for someone to kill me. Why was everyone ignoring me? Suddenly, I felt it, right on the nape of my neck. That tingling sensation. God's gaze.
君は
And within my mind,
ここで死んじゃダメだ。
a certain voice rang. I gulped.
理想度を手に入れて。
And firmly gritted my back teeth.
将軍。
I searched for that wheelchair among the crowd, for that bastard cosplaying as Darth Spider. So you were the one behind this festival, huh? I knew it. Are you planning to wheel out here and threaten me, all while you're in your offensive Darth Spider cosplay? You trying to recreate what happened last time? I wished for death. The entire time I've been alive, I've just been some tool for everyone's amusement. And I couldn't take it anymore.
あの時の自称将軍は僕じゃない。僕はコスプレはしないよ。
I don't care. Just kill me, please.
あいつらが動き出しているんだ。この場は今以上の混乱になるよ。
They?
すべての黒幕。この混乱を引き起こした者たち。混乱を利用して利己を追求しようとする者たち。彼らを止められるのは君だけなんだ。
I stood up. The angry voices kept surging above my head. No one was looking at me. The onlookers and the people from the media were all jumbled together, grabbing each other, cursing at each other, punching each other. Why were they?
沈黙の兵器。ノア2はすでに稼働してる。この混乱が起とされた一番の目的は無差別人体実験。
The crowd is being affected by Noah too. Something hard hit my head. A sharp pain ran through me. A pain so intense, I thought my skull had been broken. My hands automatically shot up to my head, cradling it. As I looked around with tears in my eyes, I found a rock on the ground the size of a fist. A tiny smear of blood-colored part of it. Grab a bigger rock and throw it right back at them! Someone had thrown that rock, and it hit me. A throbbing pain coursed through me. Moving my hand toward the source, my fingers touched something sticky. Bringing my hand down in front of my face, I saw blood on my fingertips. My own blood. Was that a gunshot I just heard? I heard a dry explosion in the distance, followed by a lady screaming. Gunshot? There were people with guns here? Why was everyone so worked up? Why was everyone fighting each other despite being total strangers? Why was this so chaotic? The villain's sacrifice everyone was waiting for wasn't mine?
渋谷の GE レート、バイオリズムがありえないくらいに上昇してるんだよ。言ったでしょ。無差別人体実験だって。この場にいる人たちは今、見えない攻撃を受けているんだ。
Then I heard a sound. A creaking, rusty sound. A sound akin to a dying woman gasping for air. The sound of a wheelchair. Despite how many people there were, despite the wall of people surging erratically, Shogun moved his wheelchair forward. And, without bumping into anyone, without getting dragged into a single fight, he made his way straight to me. Ever so small, with a body of skin and bone, he was covered in wrinkles and looked so frail, it was as if he might break at the slightest touch. His eyes were cloudy as could be. I didn't know what he was looking at, nor what he saw through those eyes. I couldn't bring myself to look away anymore. And suddenly, The tumult surrounding me began to grow distant.
ずっと君を見ていたよ。
It was the same voice as the time we had first met. It wasn't that strange voice I heard at Ofront.
君は誰なの？
You're the other Takumi, aren't you?
僕は君だよ。
And of those few words, I finally understood.
僕を妄想して生み出したのも、神の自然の正体も君だったんだね。
He was my creator. The existence who had envisioned me within a delusion. Someone who I could never hope to match up to.
君の名前は？
西条匠。
The real me. The original me.
君はいくつなの？
君と同い年だよ。君の設定とね。
So, high school age, then. 17 years old. Even though he was so small, even though he was covered in wrinkles, he was only 17 years old.
このままだと世界が死んじゃう。ノア2にあらゆる人の心は支配されちゃう。だから君に託したんだ。
Entrusted? Entrusted what exactly?
意味がわかんないよ。そんなの僕には関係ない。頼むよ。僕を消して。今すぐに消してほしい。
Shogun's wrinkles stirred. He was likely making an expression, but I couldn't see it as anything other than wrinkles shifting on his face.
全部僕のせいなんだ。僕が IR2 を妄想しちゃったせいで。なんとか止めようとしたけど、僕はこんな体だから満足に動くこともできない。それで君を生み出した。君に止めてもらうために。
そんなの知らない。僕は君のコピーだけど、僕はやりたくない。コピーだけが苦しまなくちゃいけないなんて、そんなの嫌だ。死なせてよ。
君はコピーじゃない。もう一人の僕だ。
つまりコピーじゃないか。君のしてることはすごく残酷だ。
悪かったって思ってるよ。でも他に方法はなかった。今世界の命運は君にかかっていると言っても過言じゃないんだ。だから。
そんなのリミに頼めばいいじゃないか。知り合いなんでしょ。
Acquaintances. I'd said that on purpose. I didn't want to think they were lovers or good friends. And so, only then did I realize my feelings. I was jealous of the original me. I was rich, coming from a delusionary existence. What a fucking disgrace. I couldn't believe myself. There was not knowing your place, and then there was this. My own feelings made me want to throw up. My emotions continued to spiral. I wanted to die.
リミはナナミを助けに行って逆に捕まっちゃったんだ。
え？
リミはね、僕を救おうとしてくれていた。その理由は君も知っているよね。
空、あの空はどうしてあんなに泣きたくなるくらい青いのかな。
それを望んだから。
私は望んでない。
僕が望んだんだ。
I remember this scene.
ここは君の心象世界であると同時に僕の心象世界でもあるから。
Rimi turned toward me. She stared at me, her face deeply puzzled.
あなた誰？ここには私以外はいないはずなのに。あなたは別の私？
違うよ。
だったら誰？どうやってここに来たの？私の心の中だよ。ずっと暗闇しかなかった。光は私に当たるスポットライトだけ。それなのにあなたが来た途端に暗闇がなくなって空ができた。
妄想がシンクロしたんだ。君の力がとても強かったから。
そう。
Rimi looked up toward the sky once more. It was a crystal clear, azure sky.
私、本物の空、見たことないんだ。私っていう人格が生まれた時にはね、もう暗い部屋に閉じ込められてた。心の中も外も闇しかなかった。そこからは絶対に出してもらえないの。私今死のうとしてたんだ。心を自殺させるの。きっとこれまでの私もそうしてきたと思うし。でもせっかくあなたが空を持ってきてくれたから、この光景を記憶に刻んでおいていいかな。次の私がまたこうして想像できるように。
死にたいの？
うん。
本当の空を見てみたいとは思わないの？
ねえ、空って本当にあるのかな？
あるよ。でも現実の空はこの空よりも汚れてる。
どこにある？あの空はどこにあるの？
君が望めばどこにでも。
望んでいいの？
もちろんだよ。
どうやって望むの？
光は電磁場の波。その振動現象を人の視覚は色として捉えるんだ。自分のデッドスポットに望む色を当てはめてごらん。そうすれば君の望む世界の色を作り出せる。世界は君の望みに応えてくれるよ。
Several days, even months, perhaps, had then passed since that encounter. And one day, Rimi had come to my hospital room. She and I were fellow patients at the same hospital, fellow possessors of something that transcended human understanding. The power of gigolomania, an attribute we were unsure whether to abhor or to take great pride in.
お兄、お客さんだよ。ねえねえ、誰？彼女さん、いつの間に？やるね、お兄ってば。また
Nanami?
会えたね。
She was deeply haggard. Her skin was morbidly pale. Her hair was dry and neglected, growing according to its own whims. Her fingernails were cracked. Her eyes constantly squinted, as if dazzled by a brilliant light.
本物の空は見られた？
うん。あ、そうだ。
Nanami, who had been watching us talking, suddenly clapped her hands in apparent remembrance.
ナナ、お洗濯してこなくちゃ。リミさんでしたっけ？どうぞごゆっくり。
Let me guess. Nanami is Shogun's kid sister. And since Takumi is meant to be another him, I'd more or less, given that we know that a person's memories can be tampered with, would it be correct of me to assume that I've essentially inherited his sister, so to speak, for lack of a better description? Yeah, I really don't know how else to put it other than that. It would make sense if that's the case. It would also explain why Nanami is real, because, well, Shogun is real. And if Nanami is his sister, then, well, yeah. But then that also makes me wonder, because I know I speculated about this earlier. Some of the memories that Takumi has of his childhood, are they actually fabricated whole cloth? Or do some of them belong to Shogun? And we just inherited those memories too. Nanami left the room. Rimi and I vacantly watched her depart. Rimi then turned her back toward me.
匠はいつから入院してるの
5年ぐらい。
5 years. How long ago was this? So, the Takumi that we know was created roughly a year and a half ago, according to Rimi. So, if this is right before then, I would assume that Shogun in this memory is 15, maybe 16 years old.
退院の予定は
ないよ。僕の余命はあと2年ぐらいだと思うし。
私はあなたのおかげで頑張ることができた。終わりなんて絶対にないと思ってた。でもあなたが教えてくれた空を見るまで頑張ろうと思った。そしたら急に外に出してもらえた。用済みになったって言った方が正しいかもしれないけど、
そう。
私はあなたに救われたの。だから 今度は私があなたの力になりたい。
そんなの気にしなくていい。わざわざ僕に会いに来なくてもいいよ。君にはこれから普通に生きてほしい。
普通の生き方なんてわからないから。
And that's how you two met. Rimi's past. Rimi's feelings. Rimi's resolve. My chest tightened as I remembered them all.
なんでリミは僕に近づいてきたの？
彼女は君の近くにいることで、君の行動、君に接触してくる人間のことを監視して、君を覚醒させないようにしていたんだ。彼女を恨まないであげて。彼女はただおせっかいなだけなんだ。
A tinge of sadness appeared in Shogun's voice.
巻き込みたくなかったのに、彼女は僕がどれだけ止めても聞いてくれなかった。勝手に僕に恩義なんか感じて。本当におせっかいだよ。
リミとナナミは誰に捕まってるの？
プロジェクトノアの責任者、すべての黒幕、ノロセ源一。かつてリミを捕らえて拷問していた男でもある。それなのにリミはナナミと僕と、そして君を助けるためにあの男のところへたった一人で乗り込んでいっちゃった。
A voice echoed within my head. It uttered the words of a Rimi I didn't know. Words she had spoken to Shogun.
リミ？
私、実はちょっとした報告があります。ナナちゃんをこれから助けに行こうと思って。
A phone call from the last episode?
やめるんだ。君はあの男、ノロセとはもう会いたくないでしょ？
私って信用されてないな。平気だってば。昔の話だしね。そもそも私の感情とナナちゃんを助けることとどっちを優先させるかなんて決まりきってることだよ。
ナナミを助けるのもプロジェクトノアを止めるのも僕のやるべきことだ。君はそこまでしなくていいんだよ。
言ったでしょ。私はあなたの力になりたいって。それにタクには関わらせたくないの。
おせっかいだね。
そうかもね。あなたにしか言われたことはないけど。ねえ、ちょっとだけ語っちゃっていいかな。タクにね、いろいろひどいこと言っちゃったんだ。しかもそんなことしておいてすごく自分勝手なんだけど、私彼と一緒に過ごした時間はとっても楽しかったって思っちゃってるんだ。何もかもが妄想でまみれたまやかしでしかなかったのに。学生生活もあの学校に私やタクが通っていることも、大地と友達だっていうことも、私がタクと一緒にいようとしたことも、タクの存在そのものも。タクってどうしようもないくらい情けなくて、どうしようもないくらい弱くて、きっと普通の女だったら見向きもしないような男の子なんだよ。なのに 私の心には楽しかったっていう気持ちがあるの。なのに私の心にはもっと一緒にいたかったっていう気持ちがあるの。この気持ちって何なのかな。
インプリンティングのようなものかもしれないね。
Imprinting. You mean like how certain species of animal upon being born will imprint upon the first large mammal that they see? Imprinting. The automatic assumption present in some animals in which a newborn child recognizes the first thing it sees as its parent. Yeah, that's what I thought. This can occur even if the parent is of a different species than the child. Even after imprinting occurs, it is possible to force a child to change who they recognize as their parent by presenting them with a substitute.
本能っていうことかな。それって意外とロマンチックかも。
君が楽しかったなら、きっと彼も楽しかったと思うよ。
そうだといいな。私はタクと似たようなものだから。肉体が妄想から作られた存在と、人格が妄想から作られた存在と、どっちも変わらないでしょ。だからタクのこと消したくなかった。
That's not what I remember seeing in the opening.
消さなくちゃダメだって思ってたんだけどね。でもいつの間にか感情移入しちゃったみたい。タクにはごく普通に暮らしていってもらいたいの。私はタクミもタクも助けたい。ねえ、タクのことはそっとしておいてあげて。
そういうわけにはいかない。ノア2を破壊するために彼は必要だよ。
私が何とかするから。
君はそんなことしなくていい。君こそごく普通に暮らしていくべきだ。
さてと、そろそろ切るね。
リミ、やめて。
本当に大丈夫だって。あなたは何も心配しないで。私が全部決着をつけてくるからね。タクミ。
After it was already too late, Rimi's words sank into my heart. She really was a hopeless meddler. Why did she have to keep fighting so hard? Why did she have to keep acting so selflessly?
私はタクの味方だから。
You weren't lying, were you? About being on my side, in spite of all the lies. Memories of Rimi all came back to me. Memories of the short time we had spent together until now. Memories of the feelings that had been hidden behind every word she'd said.
私が一緒にいてあげる。
Over the past year and a half, if I had to summarize what I'd done, I'd mostly be ESO, RMT, and Eroge. I devoted myself entirely to those things, all while staying shut inside my base. I barely gone to school, and I rarely try to talk to anyone. Born into this world, I lived as though I were dead. But for the past month or so, that had changed. And even though, as a result of this, I've been lied to.
朝、一緒に学校行って。
She had stayed by the side of someone like me.
学校では休み時間にどうでもいいこと話して。
She had given me peace of mind when I was quivering in fear.
お昼休みは一緒にご飯食べて。
She had supported the failure that I was, encouraged me.
夕方、一緒に帰って。
She had embraced me.
帰るついでに、たまにどこかのお店に寄ったりして。
She had taught a delusionary existence like me the warmth that humanity held.
タクの部屋で、ちょっとだけおしゃべりして。
She could have erased me, and yet she had tried to protect me.
それで、また明日ねって手を振って別れて。
She had made memories of me.
そんなのでいいなら、私、いくらでもしてあげるよ。
In my year and a half long life, I could still vividly remember the time I had spent with her, even now.
そういうの、結構憧れなんだ。
Rimi's little gestures, Rimi's scent wafting from her hair, Rimi's little sighs, and the sound that came from them, Rimi's glimmering eyes, Rimi's cheerful voice, Rimi's tender warmth. Ah, I see. I was in love with Rimi. How disgusting was that? What a freak. A wry smile crept onto my face in response to my own creepiness. A delusionary existence, falling in love? Were feelings of love something that a delusionary existence could feel? Or were they a mere illusion? I really didn't know. But if you feel them, then they're certainly real to you, even if they may not be real to anyone else. Takumi. And in the end, isn't that all that really matters? I wanted to be true to these feelings. Rimi saw me as a friend. There was no way she saw me as someone of the opposite sex. Besides, an otaku freak like me wouldn't go well together with her. You won't know until you try. But even so, even if she didn't love me back, even if it was just for my own satisfaction, even if I was just a delusionary existence, I at least wanted to do something for someone. For Rimi. Before I disappeared. It was disgusting that a disgusting otaku freak would fall in love. It was disgusting that a disgusting delusionary existence would fall in love. But so what? Even if it was disgusting, even if it wouldn't go anywhere, I I didn't want to brush these feelings away as mere illusions and delusions. The memories of this past month are both Rimi's and mine, mutually recognized between us both. Even if the rest were just make-believe, these memories, and the feelings born from them, were real.
世界を救ってほしい。
So Shogun said. I shook my head.
僕は勇者じゃない。人間でもない。そんな僕に世界を救えとか何を考えてるの？
君には本当に悪いと思ってるけど、君にやってもらうしかないんだ。
自分に謝るなんてバカみたいだ。
I glared at the real me. The real me caught the fake me's gaze.
僕は君が嫌いだ。
僕は君が羨ましいよ。
僕は世界のためになんか頑張らない。世界を救うとかそんなことどうでもいい。
I'd be the one to give meaning to my birth.
ただ僕はリミを。
ありがとう。
The sounds around me started coming back. More and more oil was being poured on the fires of chaos. Oh, I see some of them are getting bloodied, something fierce. It had already become a riot. I was hit with the smell of blood. Around me, I heard the sound of screams, shouts, moans, and mechanical noise that sounded almost like audio feedback. They all pulled together and overflowed across the crossing.
理想度を手に入れる方法を教えて。
君はすでにそれを知っているはずだよ。
Okay, Takumi, you heard the man. We already know. So pay close attention to your surroundings until you see the big dumb glowy object again. My gaze moved upward, looking for the silhouette of a sword blending into the scenery. Rocks were thrown around. Canisters of tear gas made smoke rise from the ground. And people from every direction crashed into me, time and time again. In the center of it all, I focused and sought the sword I had once seen from the roof of Ofrant. It had to be visible already. Without a doubt, it had to be here, somewhere. Lost amid the scenery. My D-sword was always right beside me. Now, seize it!
見つけた。
On the building to the right of 107, there was a vertical billboard. And when I looked toward it, I saw the shape of a sword. Anxiety seeped into me. I swallowed back my saliva. When I had looked from the roof of Ofrant, I had been able to perceive its shape. But in the end, I hadn't been able to physically grasp it.
自分の意志を強く持つんだ。迷っちゃダメだからね。君にはもう剣を手に入れる資格は十分にある。
I extended my hand as I stood in place. In order to save someone dear to me, I had to get it. No matter what. No matter what. I gritted my teeth. This wouldn't be like last time. My mind was surprisingly calm. I wasn't afraid. I couldn't be afraid. But it wasn't that I was keeping a cool head. Emotions simmered and boiled inside me. I had something I needed to do.
掴むんだ。
107 was about 100 meters away. and upon overlapping my fist with the sword, I grasped it. Even though I should have grabbed an empty spot in the air, there was something there. It was neither hot nor cold, neither hard nor soft. Keeping my hold on it, I drew it closer to me. Ripples surfaced across the air, and from within those ripples, it slid free. Look at that! All too long to be called a sword. Delicate enough to shatter at a moment's notice. Pervaded with phantasmal elegance. Lacking in any meretricious features. Absent of all garishness. With an immaculate malice. Capable of swallowing one's soul whole. One which belonged to an awe-inspiring beauty. Linking with my exalted heart, the design of the sinister flames on the handle flickered. I didn't feel even an ounce of weight. Rather, it was as if it was an extension of my arm. As though it had been there from the very beginning. As though it were a part of my own body. It didn't feel like I was holding a sword. So this was a D-sword! I grasped it firmly with both hands. I should have been able to reboot it now. If I got to be mutually recognized by my surroundings, the sword would be brought forth into reality. As for how to do it, I didn't know. I simply desired it. I shouted within my heart for it to become reality. All hesitation within me was gone. The sword, as if answering my call, started faintly shining. The flame pattern on the hilt transformed into real flames. Flames which swiftly enveloped the sword. And yet, I felt no heat. Soon enough, those flames were swallowed by the entirety of the sword's body, and together with a fierce impact, the D sword shone with a crimson light. A number of people around me were surprised by my sword. However, it was only a handful of them. Only a handful were left dumbfounded by its appearance. The others were too focused on punching and kicking each other. The riots didn't seem to be stopping anytime soon.
この暴動を引き起こしているポーターたちを探すんだ。彼らの持つ機械を破壊すれば、バイオリズムの高騰も収まる。
ポーター。
ノア2の端末としての存在。君はすでにそのヒントを見てきたはずだよ。君の頭の中に、それは記憶として刻まれている。
I called forth all that I had seen.
.ようやく尻尾を出したんだ。そいつを掴んで離さねえようにしないとな。
辛いんですね。
有限会社知らんか。聞いたことあるか。
返して。7のバングル返して。
地点 L2 の8 0.62 メガ GE ハイスコアです。
どんな手品だこりゃ。
望み。
我が社ではポーターと呼んでいます。言い換えればマインドコントロールのための部隊といったところでしょうか。
All the things I had unconsciously seen, all the thoughts I had unconsciously read.
僕は盗撮野郎ってことか。お似合いだね。
Yeah, I guess you're right, aren't you? Shogun calmly gave me orders as I laughed at myself.
チャネルを開放してポーターたちの心を読むんだ。コズピーのようにね。彼らはこのスクランブル交差点のどこかに居場所を探り当てて。
I opened my channel. I didn't have to think about what to do. Without being conscious of it, I enacted it by feel alone. Let's go kill some boarders! And then, the minds of everyone here, their negative emotions, became visible and instantly flowed into me. Malice, hatred, envy, lust, servility, cowardice, superficiality, corruption, cunning, indecency, hideousness, vulgarity, libido, madness, bloodthirst. It was the manifestation of the unsightly emotions people hid from one another. More brutal, unequivocal, and repugnant than words could ever be. All the negative emotions people held inside them became a torrent of images, and this torrent proceeded to swallow up, shatter, and violate my mind. I was verbally abused by words of disdain. Gazes of contempt rained down on me. I was spat on. My nails were peeled off. I was punched in the face multiple times.
I'm gonna kick your ass.
I was kicked in the ass. My hair was torn out. My nose was chewed to shreds. My eyeballs were gouged out. My tongue was ripped from my mouth. My blood was sucked. I was showered with boiling water and covered with burns. I was raped in the ass. My genitals were crushed. All my skin was torn off. My arms were broken. All my bones were broken. I was beaten with a blunt weapon. I was stabbed with a blade. My organs were gouged out. My neck was strangled. My flesh was eaten by a giant beast. I was thrown off a high place. I drowned in a pool of water. I had my entire body burned by flames. Having synchronized with it all, my mind was being broken. I felt like I was about to go insane. I gritted my teeth and desperately held on to my consciousness. Was this how Kozubi had lived her whole life? Well, I guess putting all this into perspective, yeah. Suddenly it becomes a hell of a lot easier to understand why she snapped the way she did.
見るべき妄想をコントロールするんだ。全てを受信しちゃダメだ。標的を絞り込む。音を頼りにするんだ。
Sound. All while enduring the negative emotions overwhelming me, I listened carefully. What came to me were voices from all around. Isolating them, I searched for the sound. I heard a mechanical sound. The one Seira-tan had said would kill me. The sound had also been inside the memories I'd gotten from reading minds. Seina had destroyed a porter's rucksack that had emitted the sound with her D-sword. So if I were to focus on that sound, The delusion I heard. There were multiple voices. There was more than one porter here.
3人いるみたいだ。
3, huh? An unholy trinity. Holding my breath, I took a step forward. In front of me was the chaotic crowd. Without a trace of order, they moved through the scrambled crossing as they pleased, beating each other within an inch of their lives. It would be difficult to go straight through. I hacked the delusions of the people in the direction of the target. And so, little by little, the people in my field of view made way. And there, a path was made for me. There was a single man about 50 meters from me, and all the obstacles between me and him had now been removed. Get him, boy! Our eyes met. He was a plump man in a suit, wearing a rucksack on his back.
一人目。
Taking the shortest path there, I ran straight ahead through the crowd without bumping into anyone, all while dragging my D-sword along with me. The porter, having noticed me, frantically turned around and tried to run, but I wouldn't allow it. Just like Seina, I swung my D-sword, a blade longer than I was tall. As always, it felt weightless. I could wield like it was an extension of my arm. The tip of the D-sword dug into the rucksack, and then, almost as if it had been melted at an unfathomably high temperature, its contents were vaporized. The man sank to the ground, cradling his head as he trembled from fear. Without looking at him even one more time, I headed for the second one. Attaboy, stay focused! Below O-Front. Once again, the obstacles leading up to it began to disappear, and a path was built. The man who stood there was extremely thin, wore a checkerboard shirt, and a pair of jeans. He had long hair, and his skin was alarmingly pale. He seemed to be holding a bag, which he was treating with great care. Noticing me, he tried to blend into the crowd. But before he could do anything, I threw my D-sword. You better have good aim. Fly. I formed a delusion. Ignoring all known laws of physics, it flew parallel to the ground, soaring faster and faster. Well, I guess when you can just manipulate laws of physics around your own sword, who cares if you have bad aim? Am I right? It delicately corrected its path and pierced the man's bag with unmatched accuracy. It emitted a faint light, and the man fell to the ground. Just one more. I approached the man on the ground and retrieved my D-sword. The third one was in front of Hachiko. I had seen that porter countless times by now. Actually, let me be more precise. Let me guess. Is it the nurse lady? I had talked to them almost every day. The crowd dissipated, and for the third time, a direct path appeared. And at the end of it was a woman wearing white scrubs, a fact that made her conspicuous as could be.
あなたが3人目です。葉月さん。いや、グリム。
What? What? You're Grim? Wait a minute. then that means that doodle that Grimm sent me, that was yours. No wonder he had access to it. Or rather, should I say she? The nurse who had smiled so gently at me at the hospital was now glaring daggers at me. She had a large handbag with her. Most likely, there was a Noah 2 terminal inside.
真実を暴くんだ。彼女がしてきたことをこの場にいる人たちに提示すれば、この熱病のような混乱は収まる。
What she did.
彼女がグリムなら、これまでの不自然な言動に君は気づいているはず。僕が最初に君に接触した時のことを思い出して、僕は君に貼り付け事件の予言をした。君への継承だった。でも僕よりも先に貼り付けを予言した人間がいる。
And that was Grimm, right? Or rather, Hazuki. I remembered. I remember the exchange we had at the time. A few moments before Shogun talked to me for the first time, Grimm had left the chat room. But right before that, they posted an image as a joke. A drawing. The very same drawing that Hazuki-san had scribbled on the medical chart. The drawing had been very poorly done, but what mattered was that it was what it was depicting. The crucifixion case. Besides, the first time Grimm had talked to me about the New-Gen case, they had said this. It's all up in your neighborhood, lol. Wait a minute. Then does that mean that Hazuki is the so-called second New-Gen culprits that Bond speculated existed? Because if so, then it would make sense why she would have had knowledge about it before even Shogun approached me with it. If she was the one who did the murder herself. Even though I had never told them I lived in Shibuya. Even a few hours earlier, Grimm had left some comments that made it seem like they knew I was Nishijo Takumi. You're a celebrity, so you'll be the center of attention. The second time I'd gone to the hospital, Hazuki-san had said,
高階先生はもういません。
And a week later, Dr. Takashina's corpse had been found. How did I fail to notice those comments that Grimm made?
あの人が
Holy shit.
真犯人
Her mind was right before me. If I looked inward, I could see.
信仰の救いあれ。
Midnight fell on AH in Tokyo General Hospital, the place of Hazuki Shino's work. Within one of its operating rooms, the nurse stood nearly still. On the bed lay a young man, Konoe Chizuo. The sleeping pills he had been given had induced a deep coma in him.
信仰の救いあれ。
As she repeated the same words over and over like a Buddhist prayer, Hazuki caressed her large, swollen abdomen. She slowly removed her white scrubs and sat atop the operating table, scalpel in hand. What the hell?
救いあれ。
Then, with no anesthesia to speak of, she incised her own abdomen. An incision so masterfully done, it would have earned her incredible praise from surgeons and obstetricians alike. Although she was a mere nurse, her surgical skills were quite remarkable. Even while enduring the uninhibited pain of her self-surgery, the incision she made in her abdomen was performed with the utmost dexterity. Blood and amniotic fluid flowed from the wound. Her face contorted in pain. Then, after a few grueling moments passed, Hazuki inserted her own hand inside her abdomen. And from within her, she removed a blood-stained fetus. What the fuck? The man-child incident? The man-child killing? The fetus had yet to reach full maturity, and its forced removal had already ended its life prematurely. Hazuki performed an ophthalmotomy, cutting the umbilical cord. Upon the completion of this, she embraced her child lovingly, then placed it on the stand next to the operating table. With her hands now free, she began suturing her wound. That explains where the fetus came from. It came from one of the killers. The whole ordeal took nearly an hour to complete. With the sheer amount of pain the procedure procured, any normal person would have fainted long ago. Returning the fetus to her embrace, she stood up from the operating table and approached the man lying down on the bed. With bloodshot eyes, she looked down toward the unconscious man's face and thrust a scalpel into his abdomen. The movement was reckless and without care, providing a vast contrast to how delicately and accurately she had torn her own abdomen before. Jesus Christ. The mental imagery I'm conjuring right now. The pain roused the man, but before he could consider any hope of escape, he realized both his arms and legs were tied securely to the bed. Disregarding the man's screams, Hazuki drew back the scalpel she had used to stab him. It cut through his flesh, tore through his skin. Blood gushed forth, covering her face in crimson.
信仰の救いをあなたに
She neared her hands to the victim's wound. And then, she forcefully began to widen it horizontally. The sound of flesh being torn open echoed throughout the operating room. The man's body started violently convulsing as the pain forced him to undergo a cycle of fainting, then waking up again. Oh God, please stop it. Oh man. Fucking hell. As she gazed at the gaping wound, Hazuki smiled a gentle smile, and she took her own child, which she had just taken from herself, and forcefully pushed it inside the man's gaping wound. Oh, fuck.
信仰の救いあれ
Divine light forced open. May the divine light save us. Excuse me for 1 minute.
A few minutes later.
Sorry about that. Everything that I was just reading, I couldn't help but picture it vividly in my mind, and it made me feel sick and lightheaded. So much so to where I had to go lie down for a minute or two to regain my composure. I'm okay. I'm okay. Those of you who may be relatively new to the channel may not know this, but I don't handle descriptively detailed instances of messing around with a person's innards very well, to put it lightly. Call it one of my Achilles' heels, as if you will. Midnight fell on AH in Tokyo General Hospital, the place of Hazuki Shino's work. Within one of its operating rooms, the nurse stood nearly still. On the bed lay her psychiatrist colleague, Takashino Fumio. He was tied to the bed, but this was not the only thing that had been done to him. His cranium had been opened, and his brain was exposed. His skull had been cut cleanly, the line being right above the eyes.
Takashina sensei ni shinkou no sukui are.
Well, I have a feeling we're going to be in for some even more gruesome imagery, so I'm just going to give myself a little bit of drink and hope that it helps me chug along through this.
Hazuki-kun, こんなことやめろ!
Oh dear God, he was even conscious. Takashina was conscious. Due to the effects of the anesthesia, he did not feel any pain from the cut. The utter dread he felt kept his eyes wide open, and his body was sweating greatly. Ignoring Takashina's pleas for his life, Hazuki retrieved the shiny silver utensil from the pocket of her white scrubs. A utensil that could not be referred to as her traditional surgical tool. It was a spoon. Oh, fucking hell, a spoon! You're gonna scoop his brains out! An all too ordinary piece of tableware. Hazuki reveled in ecstasy. As if enjoying a meal of curry and rice, she took a spoonful of Takashina's brain. She then took the spoon and violently cast the contents onto a stainless steel tray. The pink brain tissue was pulped into a jelly-esque substance. Hazuki thrusted the spoon inside the brain once again. This time, she accumulated even more matter than she had the first time, as she scraped away the brain tissue. Takashina's own brain was getting removed from his body, yet he felt no pain, nor did he lose consciousness. Oh, God. As well as this, the anesthesia had robbed him of any freedom of movement whatsoever. All the man could do was tremble in fear. Oh, God.
これがあなたの記憶なんですね。
Please, God, tell me it's over. Please. Oh, thank God it's over. Oh, sweet Jesus. Phew. For a second there, I was worried that my drink wasn't going to be enough and I would have to make a hasty retreat again. Hazuki Shino looked up at the projection in shock. On the Scramble Crossing's 4 massive jumbotrons, her very own memories were being shown. She couldn't even understand how it was being done. Perhaps it was Nishijo Takumi's power as a gigalomaniac.
あなたの記憶です。
With his head hung low, and D-sword in hand, Nishijo Takumi murmured those words. The riot came to a halt. Silence was now the ruling entity. The thousands of people who had been assailing each other until only a moment ago were now looking up towards the screens. Some went pale. Some averted their eyes. Some felt such horror it compelled them to vomit. I can definitely sympathize with that last group of people. The mass media were starting to record Hazuki with their cameras. Countless blinding flashes ensued.
あなたがニュージェネ事件の真犯人だったんだ。
私の記憶を映像に投影したんですね。
もう言い逃れはできませんよ。胎児とあなたの DNA を鑑定すればわかることです。どうしてあんなことを。ねえ、クリム。
ナイトハルト。すべては教祖様のお言葉なんですよ。
Hazuki plunged her hand into the bag resting over her shoulder. From it, she retrieved both a Noah 2 terminal port and a scalpel. She gripped the scalpel and placed it right against her throat. Due to the nature of her position as a nurse, she knew the location of the carotid artery all too well. Hazuki smiled at Nishijo Takumi. It was a kind smile, much like the one she would often show her patients.
信仰の救いあれ。
As her own blood gushed forth from her neck, her entire body was painted a bright crimson.
Espada.
救世主だわ。
I didn't know who, but someone had mumbled those words. After seeing the sheer number of gazes piercing through me, I realized that those words were also directed at me. In front of a countless number of people, Hazuki Shino had committed suicide via slitting her throat. Although calling it a martyrdom might have been more accurate. The choking smell of blood filled the air. The riot had now entirely stopped. Hazuki Shino's memories of the crime she committed, which I had projected directly onto the jumbotrons, ended up being the perfect thing to make the excited parts of the mob quiet down. The shocking nature of what had been displayed left everyone at a loss for words. And even now, Hazuki Shino's corpse was still bleeding. A number of people then walked up to it and began kicking it. It was the corpse of an atrocious murderer, so there was no respects to be paid here. Next, it might even publicly behead her like it was the Middle Ages. What difference was there between her and the ones kicking her corpse? By their very nature, humans were disgusting, horrible creatures. Myself included. The media, like hyenas, were accumulating around anything that could act as a scoop. Roughly half of them had gathered around Hazuki Shino's corpse, and the other half were surrounding me.
西尾君、お見事でした。
今のは超能力ですか？やはりエスパーだったんですね。すごいです。
今日のこの集まりは初めから真犯人をおびき寄せるためのものだったの？
あなたの超能力は何歳頃に現れたものなんですか？
子供の頃のあだ名は神童とか呼ばれたことある。
今後警察の捜査に協力する予定は？
うちの局の番組に出てくれないかな。
One after the other, endless words of praise were thrown my way.
西条、よくやったぞ。
お前すげえよ。
好きです。付き合ってください。
One after the other, endless words of affection were thrown my way. I felt hollow, hearing those voices. A fabricated image formed by public opinion and a delusionary being. They weren't all too different, were they? It was all coming back. The energy they'd shown when they'd seen me up on top of all fights. Unable to take it anymore, I screamed. Tears started flowing. I felt completely miserable. I felt completely ridiculous. I didn't have it in me to keep going without crying. I wasn't a hero.
僕はキモオタでセーラタンのエロいフィギュアにハーハーしてる変態だ。18歳未満だけどエロゲーして燃えって言ってる男だ。頭の中じゃ街を歩く女どもを裸にひんむいてエロい妄想してる。それが僕だ。
Tears and mucus smeared down my face. I forgot I was being broadcasted live across the entire country. It didn't even occur to me that I was shaming myself yet again. I couldn't help it. I was physically incapable of reading the room.
そうだよ。これでも僕は英雄かよ。違う。僕は英雄なんかじゃない。所詮妄想の存在でキモオタで一人じゃ何もできないヘタレだ。
The voices around me went quiet. The onlookers sank into silence. The people from the media looked at me dubiously. Within the heart of Shibuya, in the middle of the humongous scramble crossing, only my voice was echoing.
それが僕だ。お前らに他人に僕っていう人間を決めさせない。僕の本質は僕が決める。僕はお前らのおもちゃじゃない。見せ物なんかにはならない。僕にはやるべきことがあるんだ。僕はお前たちなんかのために行動しない。
Rimi's smile appeared in my mind.
僕はただ
For the sake of those I cared about, I was here to fight, then disappear. But before I could voice that, I suddenly noticed that the night sky reflected in the corner of my eye was turning pure white. It wasn't a cloud, nor was it snow falling a little too early in the year. By the time I realized it was the same phenomenon from back when the earthquake had hit, it was already too late.
サードメルト予定より早い。
The first thing I felt was the very earth itself beginning to rumble. The ground began to shake. The white in the sky was spreading farther and farther. The very next moment, I was struck with a violent ringing in my ears. It was such an intensely shrill, resonant sound, my head felt like it was about to burst open. Everyone else around me was covering their ears, too. And then... the world was dyed completely white. Chapter 10, Silent Sky. Well, I know I didn't really say too much throughout this whole episode, but the big giant plot developments, the exposition dumps, the twists and turns and revelations, they just keep coming. They just keep coming, and they have completely captured my attention. And I'm doing my utmost to just absorb every single little thing that I see and hear and read, in hopes that maybe, just maybe, I could either understand what's happening right in front of me right there and now, and maybe also understand some things that happened before earlier in the story, and maybe also predict what will happen in the future. But it's been like that throughout the past few episodes, it feels like. It's just almost unceasing. I'm not complaining, though. I mean, how it's all being handled and delivered to me, I mean, like I said, it's definitely doing a damn good job capturing my attention and keeping me focused, keeping me thinking and thinking some more. But all the same, though, there's still that little part of me that just wants things to slow down for a minute and let me catch my breath and just think things over for a little bit and in depth. You know what I mean? Like, good God. It feels like I'm on a roller coaster right now, and it still feels like I'm gonna be on for a while even now. So, Bon was right. There was more than one culprit for the New Gen murders. And turns out not only was it Hazuki was my online friend Grim this entire time. And Hazuki has been giving me tiny little Freudian slips and hints the whole freaking time, and it's been right in front of my face, and I didn't notice any of it. All I can say is holy shit. I legitimately did not see that coming. I thought that when we saw her with that drawing and that one time, maybe her mind was just being remotely affected by something else here as a way to taunt me. But oh no, I completely misread that. Looks like that was actually supposed to be a big fucking clue as to Grimm's true identity. A big clue that, once again, was staring me right in the freaking face, and I failed to see it for what it was. Like, seriously, I felt like I should have noticed that detail. Looking back on it now, it was so obvious what that was. What that whole thing was implying. Well, then again, maybe it's easy for me to say that now that I know the whole truth of the thing, but I don't know. Like, was I just being stupid during that particular segment? Do most people who play this game, were they able to catch that little detail, and they were able to put two and two together, and I was just one of the few that just for some reason wasn't able to do that? I don't know. Oh, shit. Wait a minute, quick saved. Quick load. Where's the quick load? It is, today's the 22nd, so... This? Yeah, here we are. Goody. Now, what else was I gonna say? Ah, yes, and then, as if somebody wanted to torture me, someone had to show me all of her murders in tortuous detail. Very descriptive, very nauseatingly torturous detail. Although, given her surgical skills, I guess I should also probably attribute the death of those particular thugs that were sewn back together to her too. I assume that was probably also her work, wasn't it? But fucking hell, using your own unborn child like that. What the fuck? This is one of the most disturbing things I think I've seen / read in a long time. I mean, good job, I guess, for managing to elicit some very strong emotional reactions out of me. And even to the point of it becoming physical. I mean, good job on that, I suppose. But still, come on, man. I wasn't having a good time with any of that. Fuck you. Bitch. And I mean that in every sense of the phrase. So yeah, I can't exactly say I feel any shred of sympathy for her after witnessing all that. Kind of makes it hard for me to enjoy this moment I have where I now finally got my big poking stick of destiny. Not my poking stick, my glowy stick of destiny. But now that I do, I guess it looks to me like we're definitely about to head towards some kind of conclusion now, although I feel like I've said that the past few episodes already too. I wonder how many more times I'll end up saying something similar to that effect here before this whole thing's actually over. I think I've rambled on long enough, though. So, oh yeah, I almost forgot. Nanami was also a gigalomaniac. Somehow I'm not surprised to see that either. And I feel like I should be. Like I honestly should be. And yet I'm not. I guess thinking about it, maybe it's because of who she's related to. That being Takumi. I mean, if genetics play a part in how a person manifests as a gigalomaniac, then I guess it wouldn't be. I thinking about it now. I guess it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to assume that the same is probably that Nanami probably also inherited some of those genetics too, and thus, even if she's nowhere near as powerful as Takumi / Shogun, she still had the right gray matter in her cranium to enable her to become a full-blown gigalomaniac all the same. I can't remember if genetics were ever mentioned as a potential factor for how a gigalomaniac manifests or not. Whether it be anything Seina told me, or Norose, or something. But I have a feeling that I might come across more information either proving or disproving that notion the longer I keep playing. So if we haven't come across that information already, I'm sure I'll find out about it later on. And if we have, then well, if we have already, then I'm sure I'll also get a reminder of it somewhere down the road too. So either way, I'm sure I will have this particular mystery regarding Nanami solved in due time. Maybe. Okay, now that out of the way, now I think I've got all the big questions that I could possibly raise, that I haven't already raised out of the way. With the other questions I've raised all being done throughout the episode as I thought them. It's not like I forgot about Rimi or anything like that. I can definitely assure you guys of that. I just don't think I've learned anything that throughout since we last seen her that I could really add to my already voiced thoughts on whatever happened to her, whatever is going on with her, etc. So, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this latest episode of Chaos Head Noah. If you did and you want to see more content from me, feel free to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. I will see you all next time, and I hope to God that I don't have to be presented with anything so nauseating again anytime soon. Anyway, take care.